So we're at 11 a.m. guys. I'm sure we will be letting other people into the presentation as they land. We might give it one more minute, Melissa, and then we'll kick off. So while we're waiting, everybody, Melissa has mentioned if you're just coming in, let us know who you are in the chat. Everybody is muted, just to let you know. I saw that come through on the chat. We do that on purpose, just so we don't have distractions. If you have questions, you can pop those into the chat for Melissa. I'm sure she'll try and address those at the end. I'm sure we'll have time for that. So I'm Karen. Welcome everybody. I'm Karen. I'm the operations manager for the Nevada SBDC, and I'm housed here in Reno at the University of Nevada, Reno. This is a statewide event, so I know we have people from all over Nevada, so welcome. If you're not familiar with the SBDC, what we do here, our mission is to promote and facilitate economic prosperity all across our great state of Nevada, and we do that through small business development and training. So our mission really is to see small businesses grow and succeed here, and our services are free and confidential. We're very lucky to be a partner to the US SBA, the Small Business Administration, and we love to work with them and some of our resource partners, such as SCORE, and we do great work here in Nevada, so that's who we are. As everybody comes in again, just go ahead and introduce yourself to the group via chat. It's my pleasure to have back with us today Melissa Forziat. Melissa has actually presented for us before. We're thrilled to have her. She has extensive experience with keynote speaking, presenting workshops and webinars all about small business development and strategic marketing and planning with business organizations all over. She's also an author of a free ebook called Small Business Marketing on a Budget. I'm sure she can chat about that if you guys want more information as to where you can get that. She is a Seattle-based marketing speaker, consultant, and of course, like I mentioned, an author. So Melissa, we're so excited to have you back with us today and have all your experience, especially during COVID and the pandemic. So we're excited to learn what you have to teach us. So have at it, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction. Well, first of all, a huge thank you to the Nevada SBDC and Karen for putting this together, because marketing is important to talk about all the time, but you know, at a time like this, I think it can be easy to think that you need to pare back and let people orient themselves during a pandemic. And to me, it's more important than ever that we as businesses get our messages out there. So I hope that whatever you get out of today just helps you keep moving forward with marketing your business. Karen gave a little bit of a background on me, but I'll give you a bit more context as well, so you know what I'm bringing into this presentation, because I think it helps give you an idea how I'm approaching the material. So I started out in my career doing major international sport events, which means I did Olympic Winter Games, I did Rugby World Cup, I worked with the US Olympic Committee. So I worked with some of the most recognizable brands, some of the biggest events in the world. And through that process, you know, they have to spend years and years building their message over time to many different audiences. They have a lot of resources and they're really strategic about how they use them. I started my own business 8 years ago. So I started a micro business, and I work mostly with small businesses, micro businesses. And I found that I needed to take those lessons that I learned in those huge operating at scale organizations and figure out how to make them work for businesses that look like mine, for businesses that maybe look like yours, you know, businesses that don't have anywhere near the same resources, and yet we still need to get the job done. We still need to build an audience. We need to build loyalty with that audience, and we need to get them from hearing about us to wanting to become our customers. So everything that you're going to hear about today is positioned from a place of how can you do social media marketing within your means? How can you do it in a way that's going to be realistic for you with the resources that you have? And that's not necessarily a position everybody takes when they talk about social media marketing, but it's one that I really want to emphasize today. So a few quick housekeeping items as we get going here. First of all, you will note, and Karen mentioned this as well, and I've seen a couple questions in the chat, everybody is on mute except for me, and Karen can unmute herself if she wants to at any point. And the reason for that is we just don't want to have those, any noise that's happening in your background distracting the group. But we really do encourage you to use the chat to communicate with each other. And I also encourage you specifically, if there's anything happening on your end that could be distracting you personally, like the ringer on your phone or a messaging device in the background, if there's something you can shut off right now, this is a good time to do it, because I'm going to be really challenging you to apply this material to your business as we go all the way through it. The other thing I wanted to say up front is that there's going to be a lot of material from this presentation emailed to you afterwards. So the full slide deck. So if you feel like you're racing to take notes, remember you're going to get the full slide deck, the full replay, and any other resources that I might mention on this session. If anything comes up or anything in the Q&A, I'll make sure to send that to you in an email. I'm also going to send it over to Karen so she has it as well. So again, like if you feel like, oh, I'm really racing to take notes, maybe sit back for a second, let it wash over you, because you can watch all of this back again later. And then lastly, in terms of questions, I've allotted time for questions at the end. This material is going to sort of build through different aspects of social media marketing. So we'll save as many questions as we can for the end. I am, however, going to post some questions to you. So there are going to be sometimes I ask a question, and I encourage you to go into the chat and write your answers there. And that way we can all get to know each other's businesses, and it may help you figure out how to apply the material again back to your business. All right, so this is something I wanted to say up front. Here's how not to use social media. I like to sort of set the stage with this because I don't know if you've ever seen this. Feel free to tell me in the chat if you have, but have you ever had the experience of looking at somebody's business page, or maybe you do this yourself, I don't know, and all they're doing is sell, sell, sell. They're putting products and price tags. They're saying, buy this, buy that, discount, here's a promo code, you get this while it's on special sale. And it's just like, how do I even communicate with this person? How do I do it without being solicited? That's a very aggressive way to use social media. And in my mind, social media marketing requires more finesse. So that's definitely what this picture is meant to symbolize, but I imagine some of you have had this experience so that you can really know that this is something that we're gonna look at this from a standpoint of, how do I finesse social media? How do I build relationships? How do I build a long-term connection with my customers so that they want to buy something from me, not just because I'm pushing it at them? So we're going to take the slow burn approach to social media marketing today. And I actually just wanted to stop down here for a second because I see some questions about whether this is going to be recorded. The answer is yes, but I'd like to just get a quick nod from Karen if it is indeed being recorded. Okay, you see it. Okay, great. My screen doesn't show that at the moment. Thank you for confirming. So here's how we're going to tackle social media marketing today. First of all, we're going to start simply by assessing our goals. Why are you social media marketing? Then we're going to look at matching that purpose you've identified with your target markets that you're trying to reach. Then we're going to talk about how do you showcase your brand on social media, one of the great strengths we have on social media. Then, because we're living in a COVID-19 world, it can be difficult to know, okay, this is my brand, but what tone do I need to have right now to communicate with my audience? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's going to be brief, but we're going to look at an exercise that you can do after this if you feel like you need to work through this for your business. And then, last but not least, we're going to talk about creating conversation. I want to leave you with a couple little nuggets there for you to bear in mind. So here's what we're not talking about today. These things. Okay, so we're not going to be talking about paid advertising, lookalike audiences, boosting, retargeting. All these things are great. However, they're not a full marketing plan. they enhance a marketing plan. So I wanted to say this up front because I want to make sure that you know that these tools, they're good for expediting the reach of an already good social media marketing plan. They are not a replacement for one. Without a good marketing plan, you're basically just going to waste a lot of that money that you're spending. So actually, before I even move off from that, I want to point out a visual that I like to think of with that. So when it comes to having things like advertising, pixels, lookalike audiences, boosting, all of that, I want you to think of it like if you're trying to catch liquid and you're going to use a bowl or a sieve. Are you going to try to catch all the liquid in a sieve where there's holes in it and it's all going to fall out the sides? Or are you going to try to do it in something that is fully contained, that has no holes in it? And as you pour the liquid in, the liquid is going to collect. This is how I think about social media marketing, actually, because if you're putting a lot of money into advertising, but you don't have a way to drive traffic and you don't have a way to build those relationships, those leads will drop away from you. They will fall away. You won't know how to reach them again. They'll be feeling like, you're either ignoring them or they're just not connecting with you. So you're putting that money in to reach them, but you're not able to build the relationships go nowhere. Whereas if you have a strong plan and you're nurturing the relationships, that now gives you an opportunity to put money in to reach them in an even stronger way. So I'm not saying those things aren't good. I'm saying that that's not what we're talking about today. There are definitely other platforms for you to get conversations going about advertising, but today we're going to talk about relationship building, community building, all those great things that are going to be that long-term plan for your business. So if all of that sounds good to you, let's go ahead and talk about how to win at social media during a pandemic. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the goals aspect of this. Why are you social media marketing? And this is something that I really want to identify up front because it'll help you to understand how to approach social media for your business. So to me, there are 5 potential goals that you could have when you're social media marketing. The first one being building your brand. This is one of the huge advantages that we have with the social media era right now, because there was a time, and quite frankly, it wasn't really that long ago, where if you wanted to get some sort of information out there for your business, you probably had to get some sort of earned media opportunity through a third party. You were looking at either getting a feature, getting interviewed in some sort of publication. It was not something those opportunities weren't plentiful. It was hard to get them. There were a lot of businesses competing for those opportunities. And at the end of the day, if you got them, it was a great boon to your business because everybody was able to see what was happening and they were able to see that feature on you. But you really didn't have a lot of opportunities to get those chances. So we've flipped this model now. Now we're in a space where if you can just get onto the platform, you can get all of your content out there. You can put your whole narrative out there. If somebody can just find it, they can get to know your business really well. Now the challenge is how do we get them to find it? Because we're in a very saturated environment where a lot of businesses have access to those means. So I know that we've really flipped the model, but still I want you to think of it as a great advantage to your business, that if you can get somebody to a social media platform that you're running, you can really get them to become very aware of what's going on in your business. You can get them to be aware of your story, your narrative. You get to control the message that you put out there for them to receive. So with that, that's a lot of responsibility. And we are going to talk about this a little bit later on. Now there's a second goal, and I do want to point out, I know that there's a yellow line, have no idea how it got there. If it's bothering you, I wanted to address it up front. We'll unpack it and put it away and just try to listen in on the information. It's bothering me as well. We'll deal with that later. But there's a second goal that I wanted to get to here. Obviously the first one being around the narrative, the story you're putting out there. Well, the second one is your reputation. So when it comes to your goals on social media marketing, you could be trying to explain to people why you're so good at what you do. Position yourself with authority. Show them that your business is a good investment for them over perhaps the competitors. Now, there's something that I find very interesting. I've been looking a lot myself at marketing and sales psychology over the last few years. And in the sales process, there are a number of different, what we would call social styles or buyer personas, people who have completely different personality types in the sales process. There are actually 4 different personality types. And those people might be looking to be competitive. They might be looking to make a friend. They might be looking at the big picture. They're all going to go into the buying process with a totally different objective in mind when they're going to make a buying decision. Pretty much all of them need some kind of validation in that process. Now, the kind of validation they need is different from one personality type to the next, but they still all need some sort of validation. So as business owners, we need to show people that validation. We need to give people that understanding that they're making a good choice if they choose to go with us. So for those of you who feel like, oh, I don't want to toot my own horn, I don't feel comfortable really telling people why I'm so great. It's not so, there's still humble ways to do it, but you do need to show people I'm good at what I do, and you're going to make a good choice in your buying decision. There's a lot of ways we can show that. And social media, because we get to control our content, we get to find little ways to slip that information in. Now, there's a third element here, which is creating community. And I do want to say this builds on the last one. I mean, the stronger your community is, that does reflect on the strength of your reputation as well. But community is a thing unto itself. It's the conversations that you're creating with other businesses, with other individuals, with other influencers, potential customers, potential, sponsors, volunteers, whatever your business needs in your area. You can be very proactive about building that. So it's not just about people coming to you because the strength of your reputation dictates it. It's you actually going out and making those connections and fostering them and helping them to grow. So this is something social media is called social media for a reason. We get to build those connections. Okay, now there is a 4th element here, which is generating leads. And I want to say that generating leads is a byproduct of doing the first 3 things well. So if you've built your brand, your reputation, and your community, and now you're creating a way for people to contact you directly, they can be in your sales pipeline. You now go from not knowing how to reach them directly to being able to have that one-on-one conversation. So it's about building that connection with them and then saying, here's the pathway to connect with me one-on-one. And now we get to number 5, generating sales. To me, generating sales is a byproduct of doing the first 4 things well. So if you've built brand, reputation, and community, and you've created that way for people to get into your sales pipeline through creating those leads, generating those leads, now you can get that one-on-one conversation going and you can get some sales out of it. Here's the thing. Look, we're all small businesses. You are on social media to market your business because obviously you want revenue. I get it. You get it. We all know that's why we're there. But your audience didn't necessarily go to social media to buy stuff. So somehow you have to build that relationship with them. Yes, there may be some low-hanging fruit out there if you put an offer out that they might take it, but the vast majority of people didn't go to social media for the purpose of becoming your customer. So in order to generate the sales that we really do want, we do generally need to take a slower burn relationship building method to getting those people to become part of our community. And this goes back to that example I gave of, the people who just do one post after another of hard-hitting sales messages. It's counterintuitive perhaps for us because you're obviously there to sell. And yet we kind of have to play the long game if you really want to see the results. And you may, have different feelings about this from your end, but I have to say a lot of people who go to social media just to sell, they have a hard time building that engagement and they eventually burn out with it. And I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to really have a kind of a farm system or a breeding ground for your sales pipeline through social media. So these are all things to be aware of. generating sales is something that can happen, but you need to build that strong foundation first if you want this to be a working marketing machine for your business. So the first thing that you do, of the whole list of things we're going to talk about today, is pick a strategy. It doesn't have to be just one. It can be a combination. But it's important that you know what you're doing this for. It's important that you have that in mind as you're creating content, as you're connecting with people, and you keep that at the forefront of your mind as you communicate through social media. So I wanted to take a second and throw this back to all of you. This is a good time to go into the chat. Again, I know everybody is on mute. Feel free to go into the chat. Let us know which of these strategies make sense for your business. I wrote them at the bottom here. And you don't have to pick just one. So if you feel like there's a combination of things that should be a focus for you, then let us know what that looks like. And I just want you to think about this from the standpoint of your own business, because as you start to see answers come in, that doesn't mean that's the right solution for your business. Think about this in the context of who you're trying to reach and what you think is going to make a difference for them. So right away, we're seeing brand and community. We're seeing everything revolves around relationship, which I totally agree with that. Community, reputation, and brand. So you're seeing kind of all of those things and maybe the nexus or just doing a little bit of each of them. Yep, we're seeing a bit of mix of everything here. Sales, reputation, brand. I like that, kind of going for a different range of that spectrum. Reputation. Yep, Sue wants to go all in on reputation. I like that. Reputation, community, brand, sales. And I'm going to give you a second to think about this for those of you who are still getting that in, because I do think it's important that we look at this material and again, apply it back to our own businesses. And if you find that you're using different social media platforms differently, that's also a good thing to be thinking through right now. And we'll unpack that a little bit more actually in the next section. All of them, reputation, sales. I love it. We're just getting a few more answers in here as we go, but maybe some of you are starting to get a sense of some patterns here. Most people have had more than one goal, which I would say. I like Connie's point here, validation that you exist. We are a real company. I think there may be more context there for Connie, but in a pandemic, that's true for every business. We don't know what businesses are unfortunately still operating right now. So it is actually very helpful for you to get out there and really let people know what you're up to. Awesome. Well, I love that the answers are still coming in. Thank you all for thinking about this in the context of your own business. Let's take this information now and apply it to the next step, which is matching that purpose with that target market. So before I even go on with this, I need to give you a working definition for target markets so that we are all on the same page with this. Your target markets are the people who'd be most likely to be interested in your product, service, program, or idea. Basically, whatever it is you're selling, these are the people who would be most likely to buy it. And it makes sense. Those are the people that you want to reach. If you're in a room full of people who would never, ever be interested in what you sell, and all you do is keep showing up in that room trying to sell to them or tell them about what you do, your time is probably not very well spent. It would be better to go into a room full of people who could be interested in what you sell under the right conditions. Doesn't mean everybody will be right away. It means they could be under the right conditions and the right timing. So if you're in that room and you kind of stick around and you build some relationships and you get to know people eventually, more and more of those people will be ready for the thing that you sell, or they'll know other cool people just like them who they can refer it to. So that's what we mean when we say target market. And target markets, the reason that I point this out is that I think when we think about social media, we hear about the volume of people who are on these platforms. Millions of people on this platform. Great. Millions of people can be on that platform, but that doesn't matter. The only people that matter are your target market. So is your target market there, and how do you specifically get in front of them? So with that said, the question becomes, which target markets are actually aligned with your social media strategy? So if you go back to the purpose you identified, okay, well, which target markets can match up with those purposes that you just identified? And again, this might highlight to you different things for different platforms that you want to be on. So I'd like to give you a couple of examples here that are wildly different from each other. That way you can just see how I would think about this. So the first example we're going to look at here is, what if you had a business that was trying to attract human resources directors of local companies? So this is a very B2B, business to business, and you're trying to get in front of this person representing the business, the human resources director. So how would we look at this from the standpoint of the first 4 goals? From a brand standpoint, this human resources director is looking at, what is it going to be like to do business with you? Their company has a value system in place. They have a mission statement in place. They're looking for alignment, and they need to make sure that your business is going to match up, is going to align with their core values, with their mission, with their objectives. So part of what you need to do through your social media is to represent that through your brand. Now, from a reputation standpoint, I think this, in a way, this is already self-explanatory, but they need to know you're going to do a good job. I mean, at the end of the day, they probably are answering to somebody, but even if they're not, even if they are the sole decision maker, this human resources director can make the decision without passing it along to anybody else, they're probably still going to need to have to back up their decision somehow. So they want to know that by hiring you to do whatever the services you're doing, that you're going to get the job done, and that there's some proof, there's credibility behind it. They want to know that you're going to be able to show them something that proves that to them. So that could be stats, that could be awards and accolades. Whatever you've got, whatever feathers in your cap there are, those are the things that you can put forward to them in as many possible ways through social media, through your content, through the little things that you say between the lines, where they're now going to know that this is a company that I want to check out further. Community, again, that's an extension of it. The stronger your community is, that does reflect on your reputation, but this is potentially another angle for this human resources director, because if they have a sense that your business has a strong community around it, they might want to tap into that. They might want to get a degree of connection closer to your contacts. So if they can see that you're embedded in this network that they want to be part of, they can get that by hiring you. And it really, again, that strength is something they might want to take on for their own company. So that's something that can influence their decision. Now, generating leads, I guess there's a couple different ways to look at that for human resources. But, you know, what I wanted to say about engaging with company news is that is certainly a way that you can interact with the company on social media. However, as we start to get into the question of what platforms you can be on to reach this audience, you have to ask the question, who am I reaching when I connect with the company on this specific platform? If you go to Facebook, if you go to Instagram, if you go to Snapchat, if you go to YouTube, if you go to, pick a platform, maybe you're on TikTok making great videos. So whatever it is that you're using, if you're interacting with the company, are you interacting with the human resources director? Or are you interacting with a social media manager or a marketing person? Are they going to have a conversation about this great interaction that you've been doing? Maybe not. Is your human resources director allowed to be on certain platforms during the day? Does their business have policies against it, or is that a platform that they're using? So these are the kind of questions that you want to ask, because if you're really going to use, brand reputation and community to generate leads, this is the point when you have to start asking, how am I going to get directly in front of the human resources director? Maybe the answer is you're going to be on a platform like LinkedIn. Maybe there's another answer that you come up with along the way. But this is where you have to start deciding, what's my strategy for taking this to, broad messaging, to getting in front of this person, and knowing that my relationship is strong enough that we can really grow it from here. So having talked through that example, I wanted to give you a very different one. Attracting engaged couples who are planning a wedding. So this is B2C. This is business to consumer. This is, to me, in a lot of ways, very different from the example we just worked through. And again, this may not be reflective of your business, but I just want to use these examples so that you can think through my thought process in how do those first 4 goals relate back to the purpose and target market. So when it comes to brand, this couple probably has a vision of what they want to happen on this specific day. So part of you showcasing your brand is you helping them to envision that day through your eyes, through your services and products. You want to show them that you're going to showcase them and their love, and that you're going to be respectful to that. Now, coupled with that is the reputation piece, because they're trusting you with a very important day in their lives, and they need to know that you're going to hold up your end of the deal, that you're going to be good at what you do, that you're going to be able to give them what they've been hoping for. And so reputation goes a long way in this process. And again, this is about them really letting their imaginations run wild with what they want to accomplish, and knowing that you are going to be able to pull it off. Now, the community piece here, again, it does go back to reputation. The stronger your community, well, it probably says something about your reputation. But if you can show them, I've got this whole bunch of other service providers that I work with, look at all these clients that I've worked with in the past, all these other happy couples that I've helped have the best day of their lives. It'll help them understand that they can become part of that community themselves. It'll help them see, oh, you've helped people who are just like us. Now, from here, when it comes to generating leads, this is all about, I think, getting their senses activated, getting the visuals behind it, getting them to think about their big day, and then giving them a chance to contact you directly. So help them imagine the results, and then give them a way to be in direct connection with you. Make it easy. Don't make them hunt for it. Give them the pipeline to reach you directly. And to me, that's the flow that happens with the business to consumer angle of reaching engaged couples. So you can see that these two examples are a little bit different. But what does this mean now going back to your own business? Who are the target markets you're trying to reach? What purpose would align with that? Do they need to see more of your reputation, or more of your community, or more of your brand? And start thinking about how you're going to use different platforms to get that done. Because I do think answering these questions helps you figure out where you need to be. If you need to show strong visuals like this business reaching engaged couples, maybe that means they need to be on Instagram or YouTube with videos, or, there could be platforms that are more visual, Pinterest, that are potentially going to hook them. Whereas if you use something like Twitter, well, okay, how are you going to use that in a way that really captivates them for this specific purpose? So hopefully you're starting to get some thoughts about that. In my own business, I use some different platforms, and I'm trying to reach different audiences on each of them. So that is something that factors into how I communicate there. If it's the same thing for your business, it's worth thinking that through in advance. So with this said, I wanted to dive a little bit more into detail on two of the goals, because I think that these are the two that they're very important, the showcasing your brand, and we're going to talk about the community side of it as well. And to me, this one is very nuanced. So let's get into more detail on the showcasing your brand piece. So we've talked a little bit throughout this presentation about what it feels like to be constantly sold to on social media. It's tough because if you're on the receiving end of that, there's nothing to say. If you aren't ready to buy the product right now, and all that you want to do is tell me to buy the product, I'm probably going to end up walking away or avoiding the conversation because I have nothing to say to you at this point. And that's actually really bad for us as business owners, because engagement is what drives more engagement on social media. The more people are interacting with what you put out there, the more reach you're going to get. So if you're giving them nothing to engage with, it becomes very, very difficult to get people to follow you and pay attention and to build traffic. So this is a tool that I want you to put in your tool belt. And this is something that is good for social media, but I think you're going to find use for this in other types of marketing as well, even networking, for example. Something we call selling without selling. It's about not just selling by saying, here's this thing, I want you to buy it, here's the price, and here's how you do it. It's saying, I want you to think about what I sell. Not asking you to take an action yet in terms of buying and taking out your credit card. It's saying, I want you to think about what I sell. I want your brain working around why this is such a great thing. Now, how can you do that? You can share concepts, you can share values, you can share philosophies, stories, senses. You can appeal to the senses, you can appeal to emotions. These are some different ways that you can come at your audience to get them thinking about what you do and not just thinking about buying what you do, because it'll come hand in hand. If you can get their brains in this pattern of working around your business, they will eventually become interested in buying it under the right conditions. So I wanted to give you some examples of this so that you have an idea what I mean by these things, and maybe that you start to see what could apply back to your business, because you don't have to do all of the things on this list. There are going to be some that are better suited to your business than others. So here are a few examples from my business, and I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit here so that you can see the logic behind what I do. I tend to work more in the land of concepts, community building, values driven posts. So I'm going to talk through a few of those here, and I'll give you some other examples after that. And you'll see that I put my link to my Facebook page at the bottom, because I do encourage you to go back to my page and use it as a case study. I do the things that I talk about. So you'll be able to see, okay, how is she doing this? And with some of these reveals, you'll be able to see kind of the direction this is going once you go to my page. So the top left, got this post, your success is not reliant on any one person except you. So this is a values-based post, motivation. It's very important to me to be encouraging of people who come to my page. It's important for me to be encouraging of clients. I want to be encouraging. So I'm going to put this message out, and a post like this, very simple, nice image, a little one-liner from me. And what I find is that in the process of doing this, sometimes I'll do a post like this and people will actually comment in a way that shows they're not having a great day, because we're small business owners and small business is tough and we have this roller coaster ride we're living in. So what'll end up happening is if somebody comments in that way, I'll actually get other people, other audience members commenting back to them, encouraging them even more. They'll say, oh, but you've got this, you can do it. We all have hard days and you'll get to the other side of it. So because I put encouragement out there to begin with, and then they became vulnerable, more people are coming in and being encouraging. It has been weeding in encouraging people to my page. We don't accept anything less. So that is a values-driven post. Now, if we go to the right of that, blogs and newsletters are two different things, and there is a strategic place for each of them. This is a one-liner, a quote from a marketing tip of the week, one of my own blogs. So there is a longer blog that this is attached to, but it only takes you a couple seconds to read this. So what am I doing here? Concept. I'm taking the idea of marketing and saying, I talk about marketing. That's what I'm saying. Hey, small businesses, I know a lot of stuff about marketing. And I'm going to show you this in 2 seconds and you don't have to buy it. And if you want to read more, I'll always link back to the full blog on my website. So you can, if you want to take more than 2 seconds to learn more about blogs and newsletters, just all you have to do is click here, you go back and you can read a full blog about it. But you can react to this quickly, so it allows people to engage with it. Now the bottom one, this is a community-driven one. So this is another sort of values-based one for me because I want to build community around my business. And this is a chance for other people to network on my page. So Fan Page Friday is something, every week I post this, and it gives other businesses a chance to comment with a link to their own Facebook page so that we can all go around supporting each other's businesses, something that you're invited to join in on as well. It's a chance for people to put their content on my page, but also interact with each other. So all of this for me is very strategic. There's thought behind why I do all of this. And again, for me, mostly it's in the concept and values space. I've played with other things as well, but those are two of the main things for me. Now, I wanted to explore one of the others because we won't have time to talk through all of them, but I wanted to explore one of the others that is not something I often use for my business, but for some of you could be very, very helpful. So sensory marketing is one where you really just get to explore tapping into sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, whatever, activates their sensory part of their brain, where they can say, okay, I'm excited about the smell of this. It's making me think of these other things. And so now I can't stop thinking about your business. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about here. And if that's something that could work for you, I wanted to give you a couple of examples so you can see it in action. So here we have a post from Aston Martin. And I love this post because it's very simple, but they're really playing with the senses quite a lot here. They say, with the roar of the engine, vantages in hot pursuit. They've got a couple hashtags here. And in these images, you can actually feel the speed. You know, they've purposely done these blurred out backgrounds so that you can feel the speed. You can also kind of, on that picture on the bottom right, you can feel what it would be like to be sitting in that car, you know, in that interior. So they're playing with the senses very much here. You know what wouldn't work for them? You know what they're not doing here? Aston Martin, price tag. How effective would that be versus in letting you think about what it would be like to sit in a car going that fast? You know, like what it would be like to drive something sitting in that interior. So that's what they want you thinking about. And the people who are interested, they're going to go the next step. They're going to say, oh, I have to have that car. What do I do next? They're going to be interested in that because their brains are so wrapped around it. Now, I'm going to give you an example that's far more applicable to me. Nestle Toll House, because this is a presentation from me, and we're not only am I going to give you one post about sweets, I'm going to give you two. So we've got fudge, we've got cookies, and for me, all they needed to do was show me that cookie at the bottom that's broken open, and that one chocolate chip is kind of oozing out a little bit. So I look at this cookie and I know it's warm, it's soft, hopefully fresh baked, and it's just gooey on the inside. That's the cookie that I want. And now I'm going to be thinking about this cookie all day. And maybe I make a decision that I have no willpower and I'm just going to go and buy it. What wouldn't be that effective for me is them saying cookie, price tag, no image. That wouldn't work for me. They're getting my mind, they're getting my brain to do the marketing work for them by showing me these images and by putting copy along with it that really reinforces that. So this is something that if senses or emotions are something that can work for your business, then think about how to play with that. Think about how to get the people who would be interested in that to become engaged from a sensory or emotional standpoint around your business. Now, to wrap this part up, just use the tools that you have that forward your specific purposes for your specific target markets. Not all of these tools will be used for your business. Not all of them are appropriate. Not all of them make sense for your audience. So you really just have to give a little thought to which ones are going to work for my business and lean into that. Experiment with it if you want to. So I'm going to pose this question back to you because I've been talking a bunch right now. So I wanted to break it up and have you think about how this actually does apply back to your business. Go ahead and write into the chat of the things that I've displayed here, you know, of the options that you have for selling without selling. What can you engage with in your marketing? And you'll see that running list at the bottom here. It might not just be one, it doesn't have to be all of them, but think about this in the context of your own business. Yeah, you're going to see other responses coming in, but that doesn't have to influence your answers. Think about what's right for your business. And right away, we've got stories, senses, emotion, values. We've got values, senses, and emotions. Senses and emotions, we're already seeing some themes of these first few here. Okay, we've got stories and values going the other way. I love that. And stories, for those of you who are wondering, that would be like explaining to people why you do what you do and what a day in the life looks like for you, and you know why you started, and you know profiles of your clients, and really getting people connected with the humans behind the business. So we've got emotions and stories. Stories and concepts, and I love it. So I mean, we're going to see me continue to repeat like variations of the same, you know, few words here, but I just want to give everybody a minute to think about this from the context of your business, because this is going to be important in terms of how you think about what content you're going to post, in terms of how you're going to engage with other people. So I love it. Keep them coming, because this is going to be a good thing to know before we move on. Awesome. So concepts, philosophies, stories. I like it. Haven't seen a lot of people go with philosophies yet, but it can be a really interesting one, and it can position your reputation in a really interesting way because it shows you're a thought leader in what you do. Ooh, keywords. I love it. All right, so now that you're getting a chance to think about this in the context of your business, let's just tweak this a little bit for this moment, because I want to talk about, we're living in a COVID-19 world. So how do you find an appropriate tone for right now? I wanted to just mention this really briefly before we go to the last section on building conversation, because I think I'd be remiss not to give you an exercise that you can do to figure out how to be appropriate at a time that's so sensitive like this. So, when I thought about when we started talking so much about businesses pivoting, I thought to myself, okay, many of us are having to pivot something, but what makes your brand your brand? What makes it so people know you still have the same business? And if this is something that you want to really explore, I've put a link at the bottom here for a blog that I wrote about this, that basically says the core of your brand doesn't change, who you are doesn't change, but what you're delivering might be changing a little bit right now. Who would be right for it might be changing a little bit right now, but who you are remains the same. So this blog is one way that you can get a little bit more information about it, but I also wanted to look at it from the standpoint of an exercise that you can do. So your tone, you are who you are, but your tone can be adjusted slightly to reflect what your audience might be feeling in this moment. It doesn't have to change who you are. It just changes that little layer of how you're communicating with them. So what does that mean? Well, I wanted to give you an exercise that you can do. And this exercise is one that I want you to take in two parts if this is something that you're worried about. So this is a list here of tone descriptors, and you'll be able to grab this when I put the slide deck out and send it to all of you via email. This is a list of tone words. It's not a complete list, but it gets you going, gets you thinking about what could happen for your business. So the first time that you do this exercise, because I want you to take 2 passes at it. The first time you do this exercise, I want you to ask the question, how does your audience how does your brand need to sound? What's your tone of voice? How do people need to feel when they hear from you? All the time, always, every day in your business, COVID-19 or not, this is what's true about how you communicate to your audience all the time. Are you known for being critical? Are you known for being irreverent? Probably you're going to have a mix of a few things here. So when you take the first pass at this, you're going to pick maybe 3 or 4 words, max, that are your top words driving your business. And you'll find that there may be some interesting combinations for you to think through, and that's fine. So that's your first list. Now, anytime you want, come back and do a second pass at this list and ask yourself, how is my audience feeling right now? And how would I need to communicate with them right now? Add maybe 1 or 2 additional words. And here's what you do. You don't replace your first list with that list. You add it on top. So if you're always like this first list, this is how you always sound, but today they need you to be curious, or today they need you to be nostalgic, or today they need you to be great. Come in with notes of that on top of your normal brand. And you can do this second pass exercise as anytime you want to. So if the world looks the way it does today, what do you need to say to your specific target market? If you do this exercise again in 3 months, maybe that changes for your target market. That's fine. You just want to layer it on top. So again, I'm going to give you access to this exercise. I'll give you the worksheet for this, and you'll have this in the slide deck. If you don't feel like you need to talk through this for your business, that's fine. But if you do, I wanted to give you access to a way that you can do that. Now, having said that, I wanted to roll into the last part before we take questions here, and that is creating conversation, which to me really leverages the third goal of community building. So creating conversation is something that is a key part of a good social media marketing plan. So before we talk about that, I wanted to ask a question to you. For your own specific social media marketing strategy, do you prioritize posting or engagement? Now, I put this as a one or the other question, but it could be that you have a split here. It could be 60-40, it could be that you say one or the other. It could be say both or neither. I just want to get a sense of what our baseline is as a group here. Right away, Darian says both. I like it. Love that. So we got that 70-30 split coming from Mark over here. And I know this is going to be a bit of a ballpark. You don't have to calculate anything. Just kind of give me a sense of where you are. Yeah, whenever you have something to say or something new coming out. So it's a little bit maybe haphazard with that approach. Okay, definitely do more in the way of posting. I like that. So business is visual, so posting more often. I like it. It also helps me see how you're interpreting my question. So I like that I'm getting some of these answers here. So I'm seeing there is a little bit of a mix, but I'd say so far it's more skewed towards posting versus engagement overall. 30-70 engagement. Carlos is going the other direction. Anybody can post. It's true, Carlos. Okay, so this is good because I also have a sense of how you're interpreting my question, and I'm going to turn that on its head in just a second. I love it. So as you continue to give me a sense of where you are, because we'll all get a sense of that as we look at the chat. Here's the thing about conversation. You know, I want you to get the people talking with you and about you. And how can you do that? Well, it goes without saying, I hope, that if somebody comments to you on whatever your platform is, you're not going to ignore them. You're going to respond to them. That is engagement for sure. But I'm actually suggesting when I say engagement, I want you to create inbound marketing back to your own social media profiles. Can you get people? Can you go to other pages? Can you go to other business partners? Can you go to other influencers? Can you go to other groups? Whatever it is on the given platform that you're on, engage there and bring people back to your own page, not because you're hard selling them, but because you're liking or reacting, because you're comment marketing and you're saying good questions or insightful things or complimentary things, not selling, but adding value. Maybe you're sharing content that's appropriate. Maybe you're engaging in conversations, through hashtags that you're finding, hashtag actual conversations on Twitter or perhaps Instagram, where you can spot content and get to be a part of that conversation. So how can you engage in other places as your business so that with a click of the button, somebody can get back to your own profile? So engaging, to me, yeah, you want to communicate with people on your own page. You also want to draw people back to your page and engage with them on their own. Because if you're coming up in somebody else's notifications over and over again saying great stuff, they're going to ask themselves, who is this awesome person who's listening to me? And that's the very question you want them to go and find out an answer to. You want them to click back and figure out who this great person is who's engaging and what their business is all about. So I wanted to show you a couple of quick examples with this. And this is why ultimately I say advertising isn't the be all end all. Relationship building and community building has a lot to do with it. So I'm going to show you two examples as we wrap up here of companies that I believe both advertised their posts, because I was just looking at the quantity of reaction, the quantity of comment and shares from these specific posts versus the ones around it. And it seems like these had higher volume. So here's an example from Starbucks. I didn't even bother to show you the post because that wasn't what was important to me here. What you're going to see is, they have a significant volume of reactions. They've got, with that, they've got 372 comments, 412 shares. And what you're going to see here is spliced together screenshots of every single time somebody commented, question, compliment, something they weren't happy about, Starbucks responded. If they responded again, Starbucks responded again. What does this mean? What does this do? I think it does a few things. First of all, every single time somebody's commenting, this is getting pushed out to more people. So Starbucks is going a long way in advancing its own reach, even after advertising, by creating this conversation within this advertised post. That's one thing. Second thing that they do is they're not ignoring the person who responded to them. So if you write into Starbucks and they respond, you think, oh, Starbucks responded to me. We also, all of us, can see that they responded. So it gives us some level of perception. Whatever you think about this company overall, you can add to it the fact that they are responsive on this post. Now here's a different example. not the company I would have thought would be this example, but here's a post from Hallmark. This is actually from Halloween. And I believe they advertised it because they got a huge volume of reactions on this. But where were they? They didn't respond to anything that was said. They didn't help increase any of that traffic through commenting, through responding to people. So as high as that like count seems to be, the comments and shares are actually pretty low compared to Starbucks. They are also not any of the likes to any of these comments, by the way, which I checked before I did this post. So the part of it is they're not pushing this out to more people. Another part is that everybody who wrote in got no response. And the third part of it is that we see that they got no response. Anybody can look at this page and see that Hallmark didn't respond, even to things like your prices are way too high or good questions that people asked. I mean, you know, thank goodness for Mary, they do sell 99-cent cards. Why didn't Hallmark come in and say that? So it really makes you think about the missed opportunities that existed in something like this. And we just don't want to miss opportunities. We want to nurture the audience. And yeah, you can advertise, but if you then drop your community, or if you then nurture your community, you can see which way this goes. So I do want to leave a little bit of time here, maybe 5 minutes or so, for taking questions, but here's what some of the questions could be about. If you've already written a question, I haven't seen it, so write it again now, please. That way I'll know that I'm getting to it. But we talked about the purpose, why you're social media marketing, then matching that purpose with that target market, then showcasing brand, finding an appropriate tone, and creating conversation. So questions could be about that or something else you're thinking of right now related to social media. As you're getting those questions in, a quick reminder, we do have another webinar coming up in this series about a month from now, and we're going to talk about brand and target market, more foundational elements to your marketing plan. So that's going to come up on October 7th, same time frame. And if this is something you need to look at for your business, we're going to talk a lot about it that day. And a couple things for you. If you do have a question that doesn't get answered today, you can try emailing me at melissa@melissaforzi@events.com. Or you can, if you're really not sure how to find that, you can go through my website and you can catch me there. So I'd like to take these last several minutes and look at some of the questions that are coming in. And I see one from Tamara here. It seems like more of a comment than a question, but I'm gonna, on the fly, look at that here. Responding with the same comment is easy, but gives a negative feeling. So, okay, responding with the same comment is easy, but gives a negative feeling. If that means having sort of like a copy and paste approach to responding, I wouldn't necessarily do that. I would try to tailor a little bit more. You'd be surprised how many times I've gone to, let's say, another small business page and given them a compliment. I really love what you've done there with that post. I really love what you've done there with that ebook. This was such a great video. And then I suddenly get an ebook download. What does that mean? They looked me up, they clicked back to my Facebook page, they clicked over to my ebook, and they signed up for it in a matter of a minute because I complimented them once. That's really impactful if you can kind of get those moments happening. So it doesn't have to be that you're doing a huge volume of this, but some well-placed interaction, some strategic interaction can go a really long way. And we also had a question about suggestion on number of hashtags with a post. That's going to be a little different depending on what platform you're talking about. I mean, two platforms that often use hashtags are Twitter and Instagram. Twitter has a character limit. So already you're going to be limited on how many hashtags you can use to begin with. Instagram, I would say, you know, the thing about hashtags is they're searchable. Even on Facebook, they're searchable. So if you want to be noticed, if you want to get into the conversation, get the important hashtags out there. You know, make sure that you're identifying that this post is about that. Because again, somebody can search it back later. To get the most from your SEO, should you go on your own at first to know where the focus should be? One thing I want to say with this, because this hasn't really been a conversation about advertising, is that there are two kinds of SEO. SEO can be on-page SEO, which means your website, the back end of your website. In what way is it identifying keywords to signal to search engines, here's what my page is about. here's what this blog is about. Here's what this website is about. That is something that is structural. On-page SEO is structural on your website. Off-page SEO, SEO services is somebody going out, you give them a certain amount of budget and they actively are submitting keywords to search engines, trying to get an improved ranking for you. So these are two very technical things. On-page SEO for my own business, I had a web designer just make it as easy as possible for me by adding a plugin to my website. So anytime I add a blog, I can go to Yoast SEO plugin and I can see how I'm doing in terms of like, are my keywords obvious enough? Am I repeating them enough? Off-page SEO, I wouldn't even know where to begin. So these are two very technical things, and I think it makes sense for you to check in with a professional who knows about them to get the infrastructure set up and then decide where you go from there. Maybe I'll take one more question, Karen, before we wrap up here, because I think I see one more. Awesome. Let's see, athlete marketing standpoint. How often is it okay to share your purpose to your audience without sounding repetitive, but strong and passionate about what you do? This is I love this question, Darian. Here's why. Just tell them all over and over again. Let's say you're on Facebook and you send out a post. Maybe 2% of your audience that already follows your page see it. How many times would you have to share your post for everybody to see it? Once. You know, if you really think about it from a percentage standpoint. It is okay for people to keep seeing who you are. It would make no sense if you keep changing who you are. So you don't want to mix it up that much, because if they're like, but you were this person yesterday and now you're this person today, who are you? Let them keep knowing about who you are, because they're going to think about how many times have you had a conversation with your best friend? Have you put limits on that conversation volume because you talked with them last week? I just talked with you yesterday. I don't need to talk to you again. Like I've talked with you 3,000 times in the course of our lives. You actually want to talk to them more because you're so connected. So I want you to think about that. I get this question in various forms a lot. Please don't feel like you can't continue to get your message out there. People may not have heard it. People may have heard it and they feel so connected to it and love it that they want to hear it again. If somebody decides they don't want to hear it anymore, then they can back out of the conversation. They can, you know, that you don't have to be forceful with it, but telling somebody this is who I am, you know, you're building a brand here, and that's absolutely something you don't want to hide from. You want to keep reiterating it to people. I love that. So I know that we're, you know, going a couple minutes over here, Karen, but these are great questions. And if I see other ones that I didn't get to address, I'll try to address them by email.
Yeah, that sounds great. You were fantastic again. We're just honored to have you and your expertise join us today. I hope everybody got some great takeaways. Again, Melissa's email's up there for follow-up. And as far as her next, I think it's next month, she's doing, like she mentioned, another webinar with us, and you can go to our website to sign up for that. And if you need follow-up counseling from any of our business advisors, it's free and confidential, and you can just go where you signed up for this training. You can go there and we'll hook you up with one of our very experienced business advisors to provide some online counseling. So Melissa, thank you very much. Melissa, again, she'll reach out, send a slide deck. If you have questions, send them directly to her. You can also reach out to us at the Nevada SBDC. And we thank you guys for joining us. Have a wonderful day. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you all.